The 2020 Emmy nominations were announced this morning, July 28th. As we're recording this, I'm Daniel Montgomery with Gold Derby, here with my fellow editors Susan Wloszczyna, Zach Laws, and Marcus James Dixon to talk about the nominations. So let's really just start with the big headline, which is Watchmen is not only the most nominated show of the year, it's the most nominated by quite a margin. It has 26 nominations, most of any program, including Best Limited Series, Best Actress, Regina King, Best Actor, Jeremy Irons, writing 3 times for directing. It overperformed pretty much everywhere. So, Marcus, let's start with you. What did you think of nominations for Watchmen? Is it more than you expected? Is it as much as you expected? Does it have any competition in this category anymore?
Damon Lindelof, we need season 2. I know you said you're not going to do it, but look at this, 26 nominations. This is like Game of Thrones territory here. This is insane. It did way better than I expected. I don't know. I think 20. I was thinking 20 because it's technical, and these technical programs with like visual effects and the hair and the makeup and stuff, they usually get more than something like, I don't know, an Unbelievable would. But to dominate with 26, I mean, well done. That's amazing. The thing I'm wondering now, can Regina King beat Cate Blanchett? Because, gosh, Cate Blanchett is just fantastic in Mrs. America, and they love these real life characters playing. They love when a real person plays a real character, and Regina King does not do that in Watchmen. But look at this love for the show, especially from the actors branch. I mean, I think we need to look at that category.
Yeah, but what do you think about it, Zach? Could Regina King beat Cate Blanchett? I mean, it's not like, you have an Oscar winner versus a TV star. It's like, no, you have 2 Oscar winners here.
Yeah, and 2 Oscar winners, one of whom has 3 Emmy Awards, all of which were, I would say, relatively surprising wins. This is probably the first time that she's ever really been the front runner in a category, I would say. Just looking at the sheer amount of love that show got, she's the heart of it. And I think it's really impossible. If I think we're all predicting that Watchmen is the front runner for limited series, the clear front runner with those 26 nominations, it just seems completely logical to predict that Regina King would win her 4th Emmy for this program. I just want to say it really was, you could feel the momentum growing for this show. And what's so interesting about it was this premiered all the way back in October, I believe, last fall, got skunked by the Golden Globes, got skunked pretty much across the board, and then all of a sudden just dominates with the Emmys. I think it's because, surprisingly enough, this graphic novel comic book adaptation turned out to be the most socially relevant program of the year. We really have to give a lot of credit to Damon Lindelof for seeing the potential in this material to really say something about the world that we live in today. And so I think that this is going to be, I expect a Watchmen sweep across the board. It could end up winning more awards than any program on the night. It'll be this year's Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be this year's Chernobyl also. Chernobyl,
well, yes,
because Chernobyl swept too. It won 10 times last year. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that the next most nominated limited series in the category has 10 nominations, and that's Mrs. America, as we discussed with Cate Blanchett. It got in everywhere it needed to. It might have underperformed, somewhat, like it, didn't get a John Slattery nomination. It got 3 supporting actress nominations, not necessarily the 3 we were expecting, but it got some configuration of 3 women in there. And I believe it's in both writing and directing. And so it really hit all the marks it needed to hit. It just didn't hit them all quite as hard as Watchmen did. And so I'm always wary of a genre show, quote unquote genre show like Watchmen is. It's a superhero show based on a graphic novel. I'm always unsure about how that's going to go over, and it appears to have gone over great. But by traditional Emmy standards, Mrs. America is the one you would think of on paper would be that's just their cup of tea. It's just, real life subject, historical figure, politically relevant, all of those boxes. 10 nominations in important categories that doesn't take it out of it. What do you think, Susan? Do you think Mrs. America could win?
Well, here's the thing with Cate Blanchett. I do think that the movie star status of her is quite compelling, and she's great in the part. But I'm kind of thinking maybe a spoiler for her is Shira Haas, because when I watched that was a revelation to me, and that's a different kind of experience than watching someone great like Cate Blanchett, just discovering someone. So, Mrs. America, I liked it. I didn't love it for some reason, and part of it was everybody made me feel uncomfortable when I was watching it. So, and I think Regina King is great too, and they seem to very much respect and love her as well. But who knows? I mean, I don't know how many times you can go up against 3 Oscar winners, right, in this category, and maybe triumph as kind of the underdog. But for me, I was more pleased by Unorthodox than I was the other 2 series.
Well, we have seen that happen before. The best movie limited actor category, we've seen that happen. Jarrell Jerome last year beating Oscar winners or nominees. Darren Criss the year before, Oscar winners and nominees in that category as well. So, and Unorthodox did overperform relative to expectations. It got in for limited series. It got that actress nomination. I think it has 8 total. If I've had these lists in front of me, so I'll be researching on the fly. Yes, it has 8 nominations total, which is incredible for a mostly foreign language limited series. Maybe it's the Parasite of the Emmys.
Another thing I wanted to mention was Ryan Murphy's show Hollywood. It's 12 nominations, I believe, and no series nominations. So it gets all these below the line technical noms, which we knew it would, and it gets in some actors, including Holland Taylor, but not Patti LuPone. Did anyone predict that? That's a shockaroo. But yeah, it just goes to show that these lavish Hollywood productions with all of the bells and whistles always clean up in nominations. So weird that it didn't get a series bid.
It is strange. I mean, when you talk about the acting nominations it got, including one for Jeremy Pope, I don't know how many people necessarily saw that coming. I think David Cornsworth was probably the lead actor that most people were predicting for that series. And you're right. I mean, Holland Taylor getting in, but no Patti LuPone when she seemed to be like a slam dunk. It's interesting, although I don't know how much Netflix is mourning considering they've got in Unorthodox and Unbelievable.
Did we talk about their overall bids?
Yeah.
Yes, we should talk about the overall nominations totals. Netflix is the most nominated network with 160 nominations, which isn't in and of itself surprising that it's the most nominated network. But consider that it had 118 nominations last year. It increased from year to year, 42 nominations from year to year, which just goes to show not just how much programming they have, but how much programming they have across a wide array of media. They're in for comedy series, they're in for drama series, they're in for limited series. They have 4 out of the 5 slots for TV movie. They have documentaries, they have reality. They're in every single field you could possibly imagine for anybody producing television. So yeah, 160 nominations.
Well,
sorry.
I was just going to say, you know what else it is? It's everybody staying at home during quarantine watching Netflix,
Yeah.
It's
doesn't count.
Yeah.
And compare that. I mean, it's hard to compare apples to oranges, and I'm saying apple purposely. Apple TV comes on out of nowhere in November, and they have 18 nominations for a brand new network with only, a handful of shows. Like, that's incredible. Imagine what they're going to do next year. They didn't get in for, the morning show best drama series, but Jennifer Aniston gets in, and Billy Crudup and Steve Carell. Like, that's huge for a brand new network.
But defending Jacob didn't make it.
Wah.
I didn't even realize the morning show didn't get in for best drama series. I thought it had. It's just one of those things where you see it all over. It's hard to see what's in and what's out. But it's also interesting with the streaming shows. 5 out of the 8 drama series nominees are streaming shows, and 4 representing 4 different streaming services. Disney Plus has 19 total nominations, 15 for The Mandalorian. Even Quibi has 10 nominations because it has all that short form programming. So it's again, with the pandemic, everyone's staying home and streaming shows. A lot of times you can stream shows on HBO Go or HBO Max or any of these other places, but kind of like the OG streaming service with original content, Netflix, just sort of reaped the most rewards.
And we should talk about the broadcast networks. They're still hanging on here at the Emmys. NBC is in 3rd place of all the networks. It has 47 bids, and I think, Zach, you were mentioning earlier, that's thanks to Saturday Night Live, which is in season 45 and still killing it with nominations every single year. ABC comes in with 36. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, even with a socially distanced Saturday Night Live, they still were able to get in some acting nominations that were pretty, unexpected. Like Cecily Strong got in for the first year. Of course, we all knew that. We all knew that Kate McKinnon was going to get in again, and Kenan Thompson managed to hang on as well. And we always know they're going to get those guest acting nominations. What's surprising is that, they didn't get in for the show that has been nominated for the last 3 years in a row, This Is Us, which makes it the first year in quite a long time that no broadcast network is represented in the best drama series category. They were still able to get into comedy with The Good Place, and obviously Saturday Night Live is able to keep their tally up. But it's interesting to see that trend suddenly come to an end, because This Is Us was such a popular show for them for so long.
And let's move into the comedy field, because that's where we have the second most nominated show of the year, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which has 20 nominations, which of course makes it the most nominated comedy of the year. Schitt's Creek is not as far behind as you might think for kind of a little show, or at least a show without as many of the kind of production values, bells and whistles that a show like Maisel has. It has 15 nominations. Is this still a two-way race? We've also got What We Do in the Shadows, which surprised with a nomination, and it has 8 overall, including 3 for its writing. So there's a lot of love for that show as well. I do think the fact that Schitt's Creek performed so well without having the benefit of all of the lavish production values of Maisel, I think that puts it out front. What do you think, Marcus?
It's so funny. Schitt's Creek, season 1, no nominations. Season 2, season 3, season 4, skunked. And then last year it breaks in with 4 bids. This year, 15. It's like, Emmy voters, where were you the first 4 seasons? Why do you love it now? I think we know the answer. The reruns went on Netflix, and they all of a sudden found the show. But it makes me wonder how many shows are airing right now that are getting completely snubbed across the board. But in 2 or 3 years, they will finally be found. Insecure's another one. Insecure, for 4 seasons, it couldn't get in for Best Comedy Series, but it finally gets in today. Issa Rae got in a couple years ago, and she's back. But Mrs. Maisel versus Schitt's Creek, that's very interesting. We all knew Maisel would do well. I think, Susan, isn't this the same number it got last year? And it didn't win. It lost to Fleabag, which is a smaller type of buzzy show like Schitt's Creek.
Well, Phoebe's in there for Saturday Night Live. She does sneak her way in again. But I think, I like the season better, I think, than the second one. And I might be on my own here, but they got many of the below the line things, as you were saying, and even got a original song, One Less Angel. So I think they're without Fleabag standing in the way, I don't know what else besides Schitt's Creek could spoil the party for them.
I'm surprised there's no Jane Lynch for supporting. I know that she had to go.
Well, her role wasn't as notable this time. I think last season she did a little bit more.
But look at Sterling K. Brown. I mean, he had a very small, relatively speaking, role on Mrs. Maisel. He had to go supporting because he was in too many episodes, and he still gets in, which is just incredible.
Yeah, but he got the last scene of the season. So, and he actually sang, and he did a lot more than you think he did. He was a little more quiet on the quiet side in this, but he did some stuff that was quite. He also hung out with Alex Bornstein, which is always a good thing to do on the show. So,
and speaking of SKB, he also got in for This Is Us. So he has 2 nominations, one in lead drama, one in supporting comedy. I don't know if that's ever happened before.
Yeah, I don't know either. We'll find out soon, I think.
And pardon me, dear viewers, we're still digesting all of this information. I didn't actually name all of the nominees for Outstanding Limited Series or Outstanding Comedy Series, so let me do that now, in case you haven't been online looking them up yourself. Limited Series, those nominees are Little Fires Everywhere, Mrs. America, Unbelievable, Unorthodox, and Watchmen. And the 8 nominees for Best Comedy Series, because the Comedy and Drama Series categories were expanded to 8 from 7. For Comedy Series, we have Curb Your Enthusiasm, Dead to Me, The Good Place, Insecure, The Kaminsky Method, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Schitt's Creek, and What We Do in the Shadows. So, that's 2 nominees for Netflix in this category alone. They have 2 in Best Drama Series, which we will get to next. But it is quite interesting to see that Maisel is still on top of the nominations. Last year, even though it didn't win Best Comedy Series, it still tied its own record for the most wins in a single season for a comedy series, which is 8. It won 8 times last year, and it won 8 times the year before. It's won 16 times total. It's such a lavish show that that's not too surprising. And this year, it's competing in an Emmy landscape without Game of Thrones, which is usually the craft king when it comes to the Emmys. So we could see that total go up, and it could still potentially win 8, 9, 10 Emmys across categories, and still face that huge challenge from Schitt's Creek in sort of at the home stretch.
One show I wanted to talk about, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, was What We Do in the Shadows. I'm kicking myself because I was this close to predicting it, but I thought it was still too niche and, too, I don't want to say culty for a show that's about a bunch of vampires. But, I thought, this isn't really up the Emmy voters' alley. And, boy, was it ever. I mean, this is a show that in its first season only got 2 tech nominations, and now is up for 8, including 3 for writing. I mean, it got writing bids when Maisel didn't for the second year in a row. I don't know what Amy Sherman-Palladino has done to the writers branch of the Academy, but that's really surprising. This is a show that, could, we should keep our eyes out on, if not necessarily for a win this year, perhaps a win in the future. It's really gaining a lot of momentum, as we can see.
And it's only in its second year, so it's still quite young. And it's interesting, because these sort of fantasy shows, there's been such a long history of fantasy and sci-fi and other kind of looked down upon genre programs not getting in. Of course, my favorite lost cause of Emmy history was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
Although we have now seen a few vampire shows now get in, like we had True Blood that one year get in for Best Drama Series once, and now What We Do in the Shadows for Best Comedy Series. But we do see
Vampire Diaries.
Vampire Diaries did not.
Come on.
Best drama series. But we do see this sometimes where genres can do well, even in comedy, where, you know, Mork and Mindy, that was a space alien. Bewitched was witches. Third Rock from the Sun, that was more aliens. And now we've got Vampires and What We Do in the Shadows. So we basically got American Comedy Story, you know, just different seasons of that with the Emmys getting in here. So let's turn our attention to dramas now, because
We can do one more thing about
oh,
comedy.
absolutely.
We at Gold Derby, all of us have been praying for years that Darcy Carden would get in for The Good Place, and it finally happened. So I just want to give her a big shout out. And she's not the only one. I think, didn't it? William Jackson
Harper got in. Maya Rudolph got in for guest actress again. She got twice nominated for guest actress. She also got nominated for playing Kamala Harris on Saturday Night Live. And speaking of real life figures, that actually, before we go to drama, Brad Pitt, not his first Emmy nomination, but probably, I mean, certainly the shortest performance he's ever been nominated for, played Dr. Anthony Fauci in a cold open now, and earned a nomination for Best Guest Actor in a Comedy Series. And as I was looking at that and thinking about that, I'm waiting to hear Donald Trump announce that he'll be throwing the first pitch at the Grammys. So
and there's another component to that. Jennifer and Brad could beat up again backstage.
Oh, yeah.
well, it depends on if. Well, I was going to say no. There won't be any backstage. You'll have to meet up on Zoom.
Well, whatever. Well, if they, you know, they want to sit 6 feet, you know, apart from each other in one of their homes, that'll work.
Well, moving into the best drama series race, which, you know, we're discussing last, not because it's the least exciting, but just because its top nominees don't have as many as Watchmen and Maisel, but it's still an incredibly impressive haul. You've got Ozark and Succession tied with 18 nominations apiece. And I remember going into these nominations, let me see which one of these two shows overperforms or underperforms, and then I'll know which is going to win Best Drama Series. And they got the exact same number of nominations. Both shows are in for writing and directing. Both shows have multiple acting nominations. I would say if there's a canary in the coal mine, if there's one, it could still win without it, but it could be Tom Pelphrey being snubbed for Ozark for Best Supporting Actor, while Succession in that same category got 3 nominations, which was more than we were expecting, for Matthew McFadden, Nicholas Braun, which was the surprise, and Kieran Culkin. So, you know, and then we've got The Mandalorian, which surprised with 15 nominations. I was not surprised it got double-digit nominations, but I thought they would be mostly in creative arts categories because it's such an expensive Disney Star Wars production. So it's like, yes, this is going to clean up in the technical and craft and creative arts nominations. But best drama series, one of the top 8, the first for Disney Plus in its inaugural season. You know, what are we looking at as the front runner for best drama series, Marcus?
It's funny, the fact that Ozark, and by the way, Heidi Klum calls it Orzak, so I'm going to start calling it Orzak. That and Succession tied, but you mentioned Tom Pelphrey being snubbed. That was a gimme. That nomination was, if anyone has seen Ozark season 3, and Zach, you can back me up on this, he was breathtaking. He was brilliant. He deserved to win 2 Emmys for that role. And the fact that he's not in, I think it hurts Orzak overall. And so I'm gonna go with Succession right now. Succession also got in a few other places we weren't expecting it, which is always a good sign.
That Tom Pelphrey snub was probably the most surprising exclusion for me, and I'm sure for just about everybody else who saw season 3 of Ozark. I mean, like Marcus said, I thought he was going to win, hands down, guaranteed. It makes me wonder if you know, if the show is as strong a contender as it's shown to be, you know, tying the most nominations. I think Succession is out front because I mean, you mentioned it getting in for Nicholas Braun, you know, cousin Greg. I think that just shows the amount of love that people have for that series. It getting in for both Brian Cox and Jeremy Strong. Jeremy Strong, who could potentially win this Emmy. Sarah Snook as well, and 2 guest actresses. This is a show that's really had an uptick. Just remember last year when it got no acting nominations at all.
Yeah.
And no SAG Ensemble nomination 2 years in a row. Now look at it. Like it's clear that voters have really taken a shine to this series in a big way. But I think, Ozark is still in it for a lot of different things. I think that Laura Linney is certainly the front runner to win. I think that Julia Garner could certainly repeat. It is going to be neck and neck between those two, I feel.
I want to talk about 2 major contenders for Best Drama Series that had some really shocking snubs. You've got The Handmaid's Tale's nominated 10 times, including Best Drama Series, but The Handmaid wasn't nominated, no Elizabeth Moss. And Better Call Saul was nominated 7 times, including Best Drama Series, but no Saul, no Bob Odenkirk. So and those shows got, they showed up solidly in other categories. Better Call Saul got Giancarlo Esposito in, but not Jonathan Banks. Do those shows, what's the path for those shows getting it? Because Handmaid's Tale's won before. Better Call Saul is still aiming for its first Emmy win. It might be uphill, but how uphill?
The thing about Better Call Saul is this was its best season ever. And there was that Bagman episode, which was just so triumphant. And the 2 people that were in that episode, Bob Odenkirk and Jonathan Banks, were both snubbed. Rhea Seehorn, too, my heart broke when she didn't get in. This was her year, and she didn't get in. And when you have 3 big cast snubs like that, all 3 of them deserved nominations, if not wins, and none of them made it. That's very, very hard as a fan of that show. But look, nothing's out of it. We see shocks all the time. Any one of these 8 can still win, even if you're missing key nominations. We haven't mentioned Stranger Things yet, but talk about a huge haul for that show when a lot of people were writing it off and it gets in here. I remember it was not eligible last year, but the last time it was, it got double digits. And this is still a show. Speaking of the sci-fi genre that you mentioned earlier, Daniel, this is still a show that they are loving, and we underestimated it, and we shouldn't do that. Killing Eve too. Who wants to talk about Killing Eve? Both actresses got in, and a lot of people thought one.
Fiona Shaw stayed in too. Yeah, that was interesting. It might have been. Yeah, because there's so much buzz for other shows this season, and after Jodie Comer won that Emmy, and it felt like such a big moment for the show, and for her, certainly she was the youngest actress ever to win that award. But then as the season progressed, at the Golden Globes and Critics' Choice, shows like Watchmen, Succession, and The Crown started getting a lot of buzz and a lot of talk, and so. Even though the new season of Killing Eve hadn't started airing yet, Killing Eve sort of felt like yesterday's news to a certain extent. That was foolish of us to assume, because it still managed an impressive number of nominations, and it stayed in Best Drama Series. It did not lose a whole lot of ground. So let me see how many nominations it has total, if I can find that.
It's 8, I believe.
Yes, 8 nominations for Killing Eve, which is honestly... I can't remember exactly how many it got last year, but it's kind of on par. I don't think it got many more, if any more, than that last year. So it's still a solid choice. And I'm actually like, why couldn't Jodie Comer win that again? Why couldn't Fiona Shaw even win? Because again, she's the sole nominee for Killing Eve and supporting actress. The same thing that helped Julia Garner last year could help Julia Garner again this year, but it could help Fiona Shaw as well.
The Morning Show is another show like Hollywood where it gets a lot of nominations. It got 8, but no series. I really think Jennifer Aniston can pull this off. I think it's between her and Laura Linney. I know a lot of people are picking Olivia Colman. We haven't talked about The Crown, have we? But Olivia Colman, it kind of feels like last year's news. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just I feel like Jennifer Aniston is new thing that everyone wants to reward. And I don't know. I think it's Jennifer Aniston's year.
Well, I think what's interesting about Olivia Colman is that, you know, she could just still win this as, you know, a kind of straight down the middle, you know, hey, she's playing another queen. And if there's one thing that we know voters love, it's Olivia Colman playing queens. You know, and look at like The Crown, it got 13 nominations. That's nothing to scoff at. Yeah, so it's certainly a show that they're still watching and they're still loving. But this is a very strong category for drama actress, you know, with Laura Linney giving some of her career best work in Ozark, and Jennifer Aniston having this huge television comeback with The Morning Show, a program that, you know, they did clearly love. I mean, they gave nominations to Billy Crudup, as we were expecting, but also to Steve Carell and Mark Duplass. It got in for directing as well. So even though it couldn't quite crack into series, it's obvious that they were still watching this show. And Aniston could very well get that victory for this. But, you know, this is a very tight race, I think, between those three. And, you know, it's so packed a category that you had people not get in who, you know, would seem like sure bets, like an Elizabeth Moss, like Viola Davis for the last season of How to Get Away with Murder. You know, they got left off for Zendaya. I mean, what a wild nomination that is, and what a deserved nomination that is. You know, it shows that they were really paying attention to a lot of things that were on television this year, a lot of good things. There's a lot to choose from.
Another snub, Tobias Menzies for The Crown doesn't get in. It's an Outlander curse, I think. If you are an Outlander or currently an Outlander, you're not going to get in at the Emmys. I don't know what that is.
I know.
Josh O'Connor didn't get in, Charles Dance. So The Crown perhaps underperformed a little bit, but look, it got 2 directing nominations. It got 1 writing nomination. You need at least a writing or a directing to win, you know, one of these series races. So it's looking in good shape from that perspective.
I'm thinking Helena Bonham Carter, because she was just the best thing on that show, The Crown, for supporting.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, she can definitely do it, and we know that the acting branch likes the show because Claire Foy won the last time she was nominated, the last time she was eligible for playing Queen Elizabeth. It's interesting. We could see, like, The Crown could end up being one of the more awarded shows of the season with its 13 nominations. I haven't checked how many of those are for the Aberfan episode, which is about this disastrous collapse in a village in Wales that kills over 100 children. And it's not only the kind of emotional storytelling that we get from The Crown usually, but it's also it's a disaster movie, so it has all the technical aspects as well. So we could see The Crown clean up. It won directing last time. That Aberfan, that episode is again, I'm not Welsh, so I'm definitely mispronouncing that. So, but it could easily win directing again for that, even though there are 2 directing nominations for The Crown, which could potentially split votes. But that episode is so particularly, it stands out in such a way that I feel like if you're going to vote for one of those, you're going to vote for that one. So yeah, we could see it. Like I could envision a scenario where we're looking at creative arts, and then we're looking at Emmy night, and The Crown wins directing, and it wins supporting actress, and maybe it does win Best Actress. Olivia Colman is certainly not out of that one. It's certainly one of the top contenders there. And then we're going to be looking at Best Drama Series and wondering, you know, was it really only just Succession versus Ozark like we were thinking? Could it be something else entirely?
Right. I think we maybe should mention TV movie for just 2 seconds.
Yeah, the Netflix award for Best Netflix TV Movie. Don't tell me Bad Education.
I love Bad Education.
I like that too. I liked El Camino, but is El Camino hurt because there's no Aaron Paul, no Jesse Plemons, no Robert Forster? I don't know.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, Kimmy Schmidt is also nominated there, and Titus Burgess got nominated. Hugh Jackman got nominated for Bad Education. This is more acting nominations for TV movies than we've seen in years, you know?
Yeah.
Because usually, I mean, those categories don't get any above the line attention, really. It all goes to the limited series. So I don't know. I mean, El Camino did get a ton of tech nods. It's a very impressively made TV movie. So I think anything's possible. But, I mean, Susan, you were talking about Bad Education. That really was one that I think surprised a lot of people, because it was, of course, originally meant to be a theatrical release before being bought by HBO, pre-COVID, by the way.
Right.
But this
I think it made a better TV movie because it didn't have effects and all that. I mean, it had great performances and twists and turns. But I mean, now, Daniel, I don't know if you've counted up anything that Alice and Janie was like up for 5 different categories, but she didn't make it in did she make it in supporting?
No, she didn't get in, and it's another one of those, I don't know. It used to be TV movies used to be a huge deal, and just a few years ago, when the categories were combined, movies and limited series, you would see Game Change win. You would see Behind the Candelabra win over the limited series. And this year, or in the last couple of years, it just feels like TV movies are just persona non grata on TV, because you see El Camino, it kind of underperformed. It got the TV movie nomination, but it doesn't get Ann Paulin. It doesn't get writing or directing. It gets some below the line nominations. Bad Education, only other nomination is Hugh Jackman. Kimmy Schmidt, only other nomination is Titus Burgess. The interactive movie didn't get an interactive nomination.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why are TV movies so sort of invisible to Emmy voters, even when they have everything on paper that they should have to be huge contenders? Allison Janney had 7 Emmys. She is so beloved by the TV Academy, and for something that we know the TV Academy liked because they nominated it for movie and for Hugh Jackman, she doesn't get in for supporting actress. So I don't know. Maybe voters and the culture in general was just not kind of thinking about TV movies anymore, which is ironic because streaming movies are getting more and more popular at the Oscars. They're getting less and less popular at the Emmys.
Mm-hmm. Yay for The Masked Singer getting in. I love that show.
Well, I was going to say we should talk about the reality shows too. We write about them so much. But, okay, so RuPaul has won 2 times in a row?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well,
the host has won 4, the show has won 2.
Right. But I'm predicting this is Top Chef's year. They won 10 years ago. They stopped the Amazing Race every year. They blocked them, and the one 10 years ago in 2010, I think. And also Tom and Padma, the hosts, got nominated, I think, since a long time ago too. So it was a very good season. You missed it, I know, because you're watching, all those other things that they wear costumes and stuff. But I would make me very happy if they won again, because they did deserve it this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let me go through those nominees for best competition program. You've got The Masked Singer, nailed it again. Netflix, another Netflix series. RuPaul's Drag Race, Top Chef, and The Voice. That actually matches 5 for 5 with the nominees we were predicting in our prediction center.
Yay.
And what's interesting also is that of those, you had hosting nominations for, I believe, Nicole Byer for Nailed It. RuPaul, of course, the 4-time winner for Drag Race, Padma and Tom Colicchio for Top Chef, and also 2 interesting nominations, because this was the first time the Fab Five got in for Queer Eye, even though Queer Eye has won best reality program the last 2 years in a row. And the first time they were even submitted, the Sharks from Shark Tank, they get nominated for hosting. Which also makes us, between those, that's the most nominees we've ever had for best reality host, because they're 5 of the Fab Five and they're 6 Sharks. So there are 15, 16, 17 nominees in this category. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out with the wins, because at the daytime Emmys, there was always this kind of trend where we would see solo hosts, individual hosts would win all the time, and shows with multiple hosts like The View, and this has changed in recent years, but shows like that wouldn't win for hosting. And our fearless leader, Tom O'Neill, had the theory, you know, when you have more hosts, there's always someone you don't like. So, could that be a disadvantage to shows with multiple hosts winning this category, and a benefit to maybe another RuPaul win, or Nicole Byer win, or even Padma and Tom Colicchio? There are only 2 of them, and the only other time that a duo has won was Heidi Klum and Tim Gunn for Project Runway. So that's the most people who's ever won hosting. So what do you guys think of all that I just talked for way too long?
Is Amy Poehler? I'm still digesting all this stuff. Is Amy Poehler? Okay,
Yeah.
they're both. All right, yeah, because it's confusing on the website right now. But yeah, I mean, I would just predict another RuPaul victory for now. It's like the safe bet, but I mean, there is a lot of obviously there's a lot of love for these shows like Top Chef. And The Masked Singer breaking through, that's a huge popular favorite. I'm just so surprised that year after year, one show that continues to be left off is Survivor, despite being consistently popular with audiences and having a lot of technical value. I mean, it's just, what is this show, and what does Jeff Probst have to do to get back? Like, how long has it been, Marcus, since it got nominated for anything major?
It's been a long time. And Jeff, of course, won 4 years in a row, and then he never got nominated again. So now RuPaul and Jeff Probst are tied at 4. RuPaul's probably going to win. And the thing I was going to say about these Shark Tank Sharks is this is the first time they were actually on the ballot as hosts, which is so weird. ABC is probably kicking themselves. Like, we could have got them nominated 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. I don't know why they weren't on the ballot. Maybe it was a technical thing, but now they are, and now they get nominated, finally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
it might be sort of a gray area situation, because we don't see judges of reality competition shows competing for hosting, although there are hosts who do are kind of on the cusp of doing both roles, like Heidi Klum on Project Runway and making the cut this year, which she wasn't nominated for. I know Anthony Bourdain had that show The Taste. He was also had judging duties on that show. So Shark Tank is not a competition show in the same way, so it's hard to kind of, like, it's sort of ambiguous what their role on the show is, whether they're hosts or, because they are evaluating these pitches sort of like they're judges, sort of like they're American Idol judges, or So You Think You Can Dance judges. And so I wonder if actually this might prompt some shows that especially don't have like as prominent a host but have very prominent judges, if they might want to try submitting their judges as hosts.
Interesting. And to that, I would say, if it's a gray area, just submit them. I mean, the worst that can happen is you waste $200 on them. But are you suggesting maybe someone like Simon Cowell can get in for being a judge on America's Got Talent? Because I've been wanting that for years.
I think ideally they should all go in jointly if you do that, because honestly, like, the hosts on some of these shows are not nearly as don't contribute as much to the program as the judges do. So on America's Got Talent, I would, like, personally, my personal opinion, and if the Television Academy wants to put me on the board of governors, that's their right, and I will accept it humbly. But I would think you could just put them together. So like a Terry Crews would be on the ballot jointly with a Simon Cowell or Heidi Klum. Yeah. Although some hosts choose to submit separately, Tom Bergeron always submits separately from Erin Andrews, even though they're co-hosts on Dancing with the Stars. So it seems very open to interpretation and sort of loosely, because we see shows try different categories every once in a while. They don't get nominated for documentaries, so they try for reality. They don't get nominated for, this year the Daily Show, the short form behind the scenes, a between the scenes show. It previously won for short form variety. This year it earned a nomination for short form nonfiction. So there's a lot of wiggle room with how you submit and where you submit, where you're kind of where the fast lane is for you and where you might get stuck in a traffic jam.
Go ahead. apparently Laverne Cox is nominated, and that was very strange. If you watched the
Yes,
the
the very shouty Emmy online
was
hosted by Leslie Jones.
it was confusing because I don't think Laverne knew. Maybe she couldn't hear, but I don't think she understood what Leslie Jones was telling her. Like, congratulations, you are nominated this year for Orange is the New Black. I think she thought she was just calling her an Emmy nominee. I don't know. It was very strange, but congrats on your nomination.
Yeah.
It sounded like she was a little surprised that she was nominated. Maybe she thought because Orange is the New Black actually ended its run last summer. She didn't realize that those episodes were eligible for this year's race. So she was like, "Oh, really? Well, good for me."
Leslie Jones deserves an Emmy just for being able to pronounce Tatiana Maslany's name correctly, which is more than Kiefer Sutherland could do when he was presenting her with her Emmy.
Well, Leslie Jones was a little bit in a couple of places with Tatiana Maslany's name because a couple of times it was Mislany.
Well, she's Miss Maslany. She's just combining them into one word. You know?
But she's no John Travolta. Come on.
Yeah.
At least she came close.
Well,
I mean, you know, I expected a disaster for Emmy nominations morning. You know, with everybody being on Zoom or Skype and in their own homes, and Leslie Jones being in an empty studio. But you know, it pulled it off pretty well. You know, so I mean, props to all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of matches how they've done the daytime Emmys telecasts, or at least the ones that have streamed. The ones that they did telecast on CBS a few weeks ago, it was entirely taped, and it was put on CBS, and they had all the nominees in their categories submit acceptance speeches in case they won, and then they edited in the right one. I thought that was an incredibly well-produced show.
Yeah, I mean, this will be our new normal for a little while. So it's good to know that they're ahead of the game in terms of pulling it off without a hitch. You know, yeah.
If we got the information wrong, just bear with us. There's so many nominees, and I'm sure we were not 100% accurate. Just let us know what mistakes we made in the comments.
No, don't do that. Yeah, no, it's still a lot to process. I mean, these are we were really, I think, all curious as to what Emmy voters would pick when they were forced to stay at home and actually watch all of these shows. Mm-hmm. And I think we're still trying to process what exactly happened. You know, and it'll be interesting to see, considering I don't know if we've really talked about these category changes, the rule changes that both limited and expanded the nominees in each category. You know, it'll be interesting to see going forward if maybe campaigners are a little bit more strategic in where they place their contenders to try to, like, let's say, bump up the number of drama actor nominees from 6 to 8. Because there were certainly, you know, Bob Odenkirk getting snubbed. He's somebody who could have really benefited from having more slots available.
We'll see that next year. All of the campaigners, all the studios will submit anyone and everyone they possibly can in order to get the number of nominations up.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Saturday Night Live, they're just up against Drunk History and a Black Lady sketch show? I mean, is that the most, you know, probably the one that will win? Right. Without guessing. It's under a variety sketch series. It's only 3. I know, but they didn't do a 4th.
Yeah, there are only 3 nominees in that category.
So, like, how does Saturday Night Live not win?
It has not won before.
Yeah,
back when in the age, you know, when Amy Schumer was on and when Key and Peele won. SNL is sort of still the big fish in the small pond with their 50 nominations, especially. But a Black Lady sketch show also got Angela Bassett in for a guest acting nomination. So, and it had huge acclaim when it aired last summer. So it, you know, I could see that one pulling off.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Well, there's so much more that we could talk about with these, but I think we can, and we will reconvene multiple times to talk about specific races, specific genres, like any number of things that we can sort of go deep on the Emmys. But for now, that is our reactions, trying to sort of organize our thoughts on them in real time. Thank you, everyone, for watching us, and thank you for making your predictions. You can make your predictions for the winners at goldderby.com. If not right now when you're watching this video, then very soon. So let us know who you think will win that way, and we will see you again soon.